Hello, YouTube. This is Largo64 with part 9 of Letters from the Earth by Mark Twain. Shem was full of hookworms. It is wonderful the thorough and comprehensive study which the Creator devoted to the great work of making man miserable. As I've said, he devised a special affliction agent for each and every detail of man's structure, overlooking not a single one, and I said the truth. Many poor people have had to go barefoot because they cannot afford shoes. The Creator saw his opportunity. I will remark in passing that he always has his eye on the poor. 9/10 of his disease inventions were intended for the poor, and they get them. The well-to-do get only what is left over. Do not suspect me of speaking unheedfully, for it is not so. The vast bulk of the Creator's affliction inventions are specially designed for the persecution of the poor. You could guess this by the fact that one of the pulpit's finest and commonest names for the Creator is the friend of the poor. Under no circumstances does the pulpit ever pay the Creator a compliment that has a vestige of truth in it. The poor's most implacable and unwearying enemy is their Father in heaven. The poor's only real friend is their fellow man. He is sorry for them, he pities them, and he shows it by his deeds. He does much to relieve their distresses, and in every case their Father in heaven gets the credit of it. Just so with diseases. If science exterminates a disease which has been working for God, it is God that gets the credit. And all the pulpits break into grateful advertising raptures and call attention to how good he is. Yes, he has done it. Perhaps he has waited 1,000 years before doing it. That is nothing, the pulpit says. He was just thinking about it all the time. When exasperated men rise up and sweep away an age-long tyranny and set a nation free, the first thing the delighted pulpit does is to advertise it as God's work and invite the people to get down on their knees and pour out their thanks to him for it. And the pulpit says with admiring emotion, "Let tyrants understand that the eye that never sleeps is upon them, and let them remember that the Lord our God will not always be patient, but will loose the whirlwinds of his wrath upon them in his appointed day." They forget to mention that he is the slowest mover in the universe, that his eye that never sleeps might as well, since it takes it a century to see what any other eye would see in a week. That in all history there is not an instance where he thought of a noble deed first, but always thought of it just a little after somebody else had thought of it and done it. He arrives then and annexes the dividend. Very well, 6,000 years ago Shem was full of hookworms, microscopic in size, invisible to the unaided eye. All the Creator's specially deadly diseases producers are invisible. It is an ingenious idea. For thousands of years it kept man from getting at the roots of his maladies and defeated his attempts to master them. It is only very recently that science has succeeded in exposing some of these treacheries. The very latest of these blessed triumphs of science is the discovery and identification of the ambuscaded assassin which goes by the name of the hookworm. Its special prey is the barefooted poor. It lies in wait in warm regions and sandy places, and digs its way into their unprotected feet. The hookworm was discovered 2 or 3 years ago by a physician who had been patiently studying its victims for a long time. The disease induced by the hookworm had been doing its evil work here and there in the earth ever since Shem landed on Ararat, but it was never suspected to be a disease at all. The people who had it were merely supposed to be lazy, and were therefore despised and made fun of when they should have been pitied. The hookworm is a peculiarly sneaking and underhanded invention, and has done its surreptitious work unmolested for ages, but that physician and his helpers will exterminate it now. God is back of this. He has been thinking about it for 6,000 years and making up his mind. The idea of exterminating the hookworm was his. He came very near to doing it before Dr. Charles Wardell Stiles did, but he is in time to get the credit of it. He always is. It is going to cost $1 million. He was probably just in the act of contributing that sum when a man pushed in ahead of him, as usual, Mr. Rockefeller. He furnishes the million, but the credit will go elsewhere, as usual. This morning's journal tells us something about the hookworm's operations. Quote, the hookworm parasites often so lower the vitality of those who are affected as to retard their physical and mental development, render them more susceptible to other diseases, make labor less efficient, and in the sections where the malady is most prevalent, greatly increase the death rate from consumption, pneumonia, typhoid fever, and malaria. It has been shown that the lowered vitality of multitudes, long attributed to malaria and climate and seriously affecting economic development, is in fact due to in some districts to this parasite. The disease is by no means confined to any one class. It takes its toll of suffering and death from the highly intelligent and well-to-do, as well as from the less fortunate. It is a conservative estimate that 2 millions of our people are affected by this parasite. The disease is more common and more serious in children of school age than in other persons. Widespread and serious as the infection is, there is still a most encouraging outlook. The disease can be easily recognized, readily and effectively treated, and by simple and proper sanitary precautions, successfully prevented, with God's help. The poor children are under the eye that never sleeps, you see. They've had that ill luck in all the ages. They and the Lord's poor, as the sarcastic phrase goes, have never been able to get away from that eye's attentions. Yes, the poor, the humble, the ignorant, they are the ones that catch it. Take the sleeping sickness of Africa. This atrocious cruelty has for its victims a race of ignorant and unoffending blacks whom God placed in a remote wilderness and bent his parental eye upon them. The one that never sleeps when there is a chance to breed sorrow for somebody. He arranged for these people before the flood. The chosen agent was a fly, related to the tse-tse. The tse-tse is a fly which has command of the Zambezi country and stings cattle and horses to death, thus rendering that region uninhabitable by man. The tse-tse's awful relative deposits a microbe which produces the sleeping sickness. Ham was full of these microbes, and when the voyage was over he discharged them in Africa, and the havoc began, never to find amelioration until 6,000 years should go by, and science should pry into the mystery and hunt out the cause of the disease. The pious nations are now thanking God and praising him for coming to the rescue of his poor blacks. The pulpit says the praise is due to him. He is surely a curious being. He commits a fearful crime, continues that crime unbroken for 6,000 years, and is then entitled to praise because he suggests to somebody else to modify its severities. He is called patient, and he certainly must be patient, or he would have sunk the pulpit in perdition ages ago for the ghastly compliments it pays him. Science has this to say about the sleeping sickness, otherwise called the Negro lethargy. It is characterized by periods of sleep recurring at intervals. The disease lasts from 4 months to 4 years and is always fatal. The victim appears at first languid, weak, pallid, and stupid. His eyes become puffy. An eruption appears on his skin. He falls asleep while talking, eating, or working. As the disease progresses, he is fed with difficulty and becomes much emaciated. The failure of nutrition and the appearance of bed sores are followed by convulsions and death. Some patients become insane. Now, it's 9 minutes and 19 seconds at this point, so there's not enough time to finish the next paragraph. I'm going to cut this off at this point and take it up again in part 10. Thanks for watching.